Wayward Magic, Chapter 6, Questions. We traveled fast that first night, even with an hours-long head start on the Emperor's guard. When we finally stopped, late at night, we slept rough with no fire, bundled up in the woods, sleeping in nervous spurts. But morning came with no sign of any chase from the guard. By the afternoon of the second day, I finally allowed myself to relax a little. We switched up slightly while riding. Tam and Cressa share the larger horse, with me riding solo on the smaller one, along with most of our gear. Not that our sizes really matter all that much. All three of us are roughly the same size in terms of height and weight. But I wanted to ride with my hands free and clear in case we're ambushed, either by the men in blue or by the thugs and criminals that we've already seen out here. But nothing like that happens. The next few days of riding are quiet and uneventful, which allows the girls to ask questions, both of me and each other. And they ask a lot of questions. "I do not understand," Tam says quietly on the second day as we ride. "Why have the men we fought against not caught up with us yet? I am certainly not complaining, but I thought for certain they would chase us down by now." I give a little shrug. I figured we had a 50-50 shot of getting away, maybe better. What we have going for us most is time. Keep in mind, we left them lying there knocked out and bleeding, and if they stayed sleeping like you said they would, then we had a few hours head start. So imagine the situation we left them in. They wake up, bleeding and confused. They first have to spend time bandaging up their wounded before they can start figuring out where we went. Then comes answering questions from the townfolk while trying to get information from the people in town. The drunk guy asleep at the table won't be able to give them anything useful, but they would still have to spend time questioning him, just in case. The people at the inn will be able to tell them that Tam and I stayed there, but then what? They could try and track us, but an inn like that, in a decently sized town like Stokely with multiple roads going out in all directions, the horses' tracks would be mixed with dozens of others. They could also try to follow Tierra's tracks out and away from the tavern, but that requires time and effort as well. And I have a feeling that someone like Tierra is going to be pretty good at concealing her tracks, even with a horse and cart. And remember, this was only a small group of guards. They'd thought they were just coming to arrest a lady bar owner. So few guys, even to try and track us and follow us, would spread them pretty thin. They'd have to spread out in multiple directions, and in truth, there's a fairly good chance that they're not in a hurry to face you two again after seeing what you can do. And yes, there are more members of the Emperor's guards out there somewhere, many more, I think, but I'm betting there's none close by. So, trying to get reinforcements for a search party would take time, weeks, maybe. So instead of all that, their plan will probably be to wait. They have to figure that two teenage girls in dresses traveling with a lady in black shouldn't be too hard to find again. Put the word out, post some wanted posters or whatever, wait for us to pop up again in another town down the line, maybe a month or two from now, and then swarm us with a few dozen guys this time. Tam frowns. So then they will find us eventually. We will be running from them for the rest of our lives. We should have just killed them. I sigh. Easy there, killer. Even if we'd burned the tavern to the ground with the guards inside, word of what happened would have eventually gotten out, and they would just send another group to track us down. Only then they'd be looking for a group of dangerous murderers instead of two weird little girls who throw fire and move stuff with their brain, and that would bring even more heat our way. Cressa, who was riding in front of Tam on their shared horse, looks over her shoulder. "That was rather amazing how you used your mind to throw an entire chair through the air. And you froze that man where he stood. I can't even imagine being able to..." Tam scowls and looks away. "I told you, I am not proud of that." "But to be able to..." Tam shakes her head. "I am not discussing this with you." And the conversation drops, at least until later that night. We stop for the night in a clearing set deep in the forest, far from any village or town. A thought occurs to me as I gather sticks for a campfire. "Cressa, how well can you control your powers?" She considers the question for a second. "I'm not entirely sure. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to find out. I've been trying not to draw attention to myself, obviously, so the other day was the first time I'd intentionally touched magic in years." "And yet," I say, "you felt confident enough to launch fire at someone who was within an arm's reach of Tierra. You weren't afraid of accidentally burning her." Cressa shrugs. "Yes, but in truth it was more instinct than anything. I didn't exactly think it through. I just did it. Probably not the smartest move." "Can you cause something to ignite without sending a fireball at it?" Tam is currently sitting down, sewing a small tear in her dress. She looks up and asks, "Ignite?" Set it on fire, I clarify. Ah, Cressa nods. Well, yes, that's what I did to the broom that Tam was holding. I just looked at it, and it ignited. She also sounds like she's trying out the word for the first time. I hold up a small twig. Can you light the stick? Right now, while I'm holding it? Cressa tilts her head the tiniest bit. Are you certain? If I miss or misjudge, I trust you, I reply. Tam sniffs. A terrible idea, if you ask me, trusting her. I give Cressa my most confident smile. I'll be fine. Give it a shot. A shot? Cressa asked, confused. You want me to shoot? It just means try. Cressa nods, takes a breath, and flicks a finger at the stick. I watch the process closely. One instant, the twig is just there, sticking up between my fingers, and in the next instant, there's flame. No smoke, no smolder. It just bursts into flame in the time it would take me to snap. I blow it out and nod approvingly. Nice. I take the still smoking twig and hold it behind my back. Can you do it now? Cressa gives a little chuckle. No, now that is a very bad idea. I need to be able to see what I'm focusing on. Otherwise, I could accidentally burn your hand or singe that nice cloak of yours. Or I could aim short and set fire to your body. If I can see the stick, then I can focus on the stick. I nod and file away that particular bit of information. Could you light the campfire? Can you make a fire that large? Without looking up from her stitching, Tam says, Perhaps you should ask her to just make a tree alight. She will burn down the entire forest and kill us all while she's at it. A painful death for us, perhaps, but what an amazing display of power. Such is life, I suppose. I sigh. That's not very helpful, Tam. I turn to Cressa. Start small. Pick a few sticks. Cressa shrugs. I could just light the whole thing, and I shake my head. We're focusing on control, remember? Tam sighs. This should be fun. I have never burned to death before. I scowl. I'm not sure where you picked up sarcasm, but Tam looks up. What is sarcasm? Never mind. I turn back to Cressa. Pick 2 sticks, aim specifically for those sticks. Start small. Cressa nods, focuses for a few seconds, then waves a hand across the campfire. 2 sticks, 1 on each side, burst into flame. Very good, I say. Can you do it without using your hand? Cressa bites her lip. Perhaps, but another bad idea, I think. All of this is a bad idea, Tam interjects, still focused on her sewing. Cressa turns and looks like she's about to wave a hand at Tam, then thinks better at it. She looks back at me. My hands help me direct my focus in an odd sort of way. I'm not sure how else to explain it. Have you shot a bow before? I ask. Tam sighs. Now you are going to give her a weapon? You truly are full of terrible ideas tonight. This kid's really starting to get on my nerves. No one is getting a weapon right now, okay? I'm just making a point. Look, my point is that shooting a bow is about getting your hands, your eyes, and your mind to all work together in order to hit a target. Whenever I throw one of my knives, and no one is getting a knife either. When I was first learning to throw, it was the same way. I needed my hand, my eyes, and my mind to all work together. But now, with all my training, I close my eyes and a hand flashes out. A knife thunks into a tree 20 yards to my left. Tam simply shrugs. That is not so impressive. How do we know you were even aiming for that tree? Man, someone's in a mood. My eyes are still closed as I growl. I swear to God, kid. Tam stands up, brushing off her newly mended dress. Congratulations to you both. Cressa can start a campfire, which I could do just as easily given a flint and 30 seconds. And Raven can stab a tree. Delightful. Very useful if we're ever attacked by an oak or a spruce. But can either of you sew so much as a button? Can you shoe a horse or fix a wagon? Do you know the poisonous mushrooms from ones that are safe to eat? Have you ever helped birth a foal or nurture a bed of plants back to life? Can either of you make or grow or nurture or build anything? No. No, all either of you know how to do is burn, kill, or destroy. We stand there silently for several seconds before Cressa turns to me. Actually, I do know how to sew a bit. I raise a hand. And I know how to shoe a horse. And, the mushroom thing. I can do that. Tam huffs angrily and turns and skulks away. It's nearly an hour later, well after nightfall, when Tam returns to the campfire. She sits down quietly next to the fire, and I walk over and hand her a small plate of food. She just nods and thanks, takes a bite, and says, "I was just over by the horses." I finish, "I know." She takes another bite. "Is seeing in the dark another of your talents?" "No," I chuckle, pointing to my ear, "but I have a pretty good sense of hearing." I could hear the horses nicker. "I apologize for my outburst earlier. I was upset because I did not like having to do what I did back at the tavern, but taking it out on you was not right." I wave her off. "It's fine. We've all been through a lot recently, and I shouldn't have teased you." She simply nods and continues eating. "You know, I was thinking," I say softly, "maybe you could teach me." She frowns. "To touch magic?" I shake my head. "How to sew. It would be a pretty handy skill to learn, all things considered." She smiles a little around her next bite. "Then perhaps you could teach me how to throw knives. It would be a useful skill to learn." Another bite, all things considered. Cressa walks into the light of the fire and grins. "If you're teaching her to throw knives, then it's only fair that you teach me as well." Tam sniffs. "You can already throw balls of fire. Why would you care to throw knives?" Cressa's eyes suddenly light up. "Ooh, perhaps eventually I could learn to throw knives that are on fire. That would be fun." She shrugs and looks at Tam. "And anyway, you can already throw chairs, as well as pretty much anything else around, I assume. People too, perhaps? You can do so many things that I can't even begin to do, or even understand." I give Cressa a look. "You seem to be able to read minds like Tam." Tam scowls. "As I have said, I do not read—" "Hold," Cressa says softly. "Do you mean read minds as in know what someone is thinking?" She turns to Tam in astonishment. "You can do that? Are you doing it now? Can you tell me what I'm thinking? What number am I?" "It does not work like that," Tam growls. "I cannot—" "I feel things sometimes, and it only happens sometimes. Usually when emotions are strong. I try very hard to suppress it, as it is very tiring having people's thoughts and feelings inside your head." Cressa turns back to me. "And you thought I could do this? Why would you think that?" I shrug. "Well, back at the tavern, before, all the fighting and the chaos, you knew Tam's name before she said it." "Well, that is only because she—" Cressa narrows her eyes, thinking. "No, she did not say it exactly, but she showed it to me. I saw her name in my mind." She turns to Tam. "I thought it was something you had done to me." Tam shook her head. "I did nothing to you." "Tam," I say, "maybe you did. Maybe you accidentally, I don't know, pushed the thought into Cressa's mind somehow, without meaning to. You said yourself that you can't always control your magic, right? Have you ever done that before? Made someone think something or feel something?" Tam looks appalled at the idea. "Never in life." Then she looks away, blinking. "At least, I do not think I have." Cressa smiles. "You are more skilled than I imagined, Tam. I'd love to be able to know what someone is thinking. Perhaps you could teach me how to do that." Tam frowns hard. "I cannot." Cressa replies with a sigh. "Oh, right, yes. It is forbidden, wayward, and all that. I know." "No," Tam says quietly. "I cannot teach it because I do not know how I am able to do it. So I do not know how to teach others to do it, even if I wanted to." "What about you?" I ask Cressa. "Could you teach someone how to do what you could do?" Before Tam can jump in, I turn to her and say, "Not for you. I know you're not interested in learning new magic or using magic and all that. I get it. But there's a good chance we'll pick up more girls along the way, and I'd like to know what our options are. Cressa, do you understand how you do what you do well enough to teach other people how to do it?" Cressa sits back against a tree, thinking. "I think I can. No promises. I'd never met another magic user before Tam, so I have no idea how their abilities might work. But if someone turns out to be teachable, then yes, I believe I may be able to teach them." Cressa stretches back and asks, "Now, when do we get to the part where we can ask you questions, Raven?" I chuckle and nod. Fair's fair. Okay, so I'll give you the same promise that I gave Tam when we first met. I promise that I will never lie to you, ever. But I may not be able to answer every question you ask. Not because I'm trying to hide information from you, but because there are some things that I'm just not allowed to tell you. Is that acceptable? Cressa nods. Acceptable. My first question, it's obvious you're an outsider. I've never heard anyone who speaks as you do. You use words and phrases that neither Tam nor I have ever heard before. So where are you from, Raven? I shake my head and give her a sad smile. That's one of the things I can't tell you. At least, I can't tell you right now. Perhaps one day that will change. If that happens, I promise I'll tell you, and that will have to do for now. Fair enough, Cressa says. Question 2. Why were you looking for me? An easy one I can answer honestly and completely. I'm part of an organization called the Knights of Krell. We swear an oath to devote ourselves to the protection of those who need our protection, the innocent, the oppressed. We became aware of magic-sensitive girls like you and Tam, people who were feared, mistreated, hunted, imprisoned, and murdered because of your abilities. The mission I was given was to find as many girls like you as I could and protect you all. Tam sits quietly, taking in the information. But how did you know to look for me? How did you know where to find me? My organization got word that there was a local baron in a far-off city who had been collecting information. That's sort of his thing. He collects and sells information. Word was that he had a list of girls who were suspected of using magic. We think he was planning to sell the list, maybe to the Emperor's Guard, maybe to someone else. I stole the list before anyone else can get it. That was when I was attacked by some members of the Guard, and I had to kill a few of them to escape. And as to how you and Tam ended up being named on the list, I have to assume that someone either witnessed you using magic at some point in your past, or they suspected you for some reason. Or maybe someone had something against you or your family, and they turned you in to the authorities. But I think if anyone had any idea how strong you two really are magic-wise, they'd have already rounded you two up. Quietly, Tam asks, I have been wondering, how many names are on the list? 5 total. Besides you two, there are 3 other names. 2 of the names I'd already found. Cressa gestures around the campsite. So where are these 2 girls? Dead, I reply quietly. I spoke to their families, though. Both had already been arrested for using magic, or I guess, suspicion of being magic users. The body of one was brought back 2 weeks later to the village she was from. They told her mother she had killed herself while in custody. The other one was found dead on the road 2 days after she had been arrested. The men who arrested her just dumped her there, apparently. Her body showed no sign of injury, but she was just not breathing. That was when I knew that I had to work faster to try and find the others on the list as fast as possible before someone else found you. We all sit quietly, the only noise the crackling of the fire and the sound of the forest around us. Tam finally asks, Was it the magic that killed her, the one found on the road? I exhale, soft and slow. No way to tell, really. But obviously, anyone could die that way. Poison, disease, illness. Things like that can kill without leaving a mark. But yes, I'd be lying if I didn't say that we know that using magic can be dangerous, especially if the user isn't trained. Cressa narrows her eyes. You just said, we know. The other people you work with, you mean? It sounds as if you know other girls who can use magic. I nod. I mentioned this to Tam when I first met her. I've met a few women and girls who can use magic, who have some control over their abilities, complete control in some cases. Again, being able to touch magic at all is very rare, and I've certainly never met anyone who can do what you two can. I take a breath. Can I ask you something, Cressa? When she nods, I ask, when was the first time you realized you could use magic? Cressa looks into the fire like she's studying it. Perhaps she is. I have a very strong memory, she says quietly, of being 5 years old, of wishing upon my first day candle. I do not know that term, Tam interjects. What is that? I chuckle. Actually, that goes for me too, although I can already guess what it means. Where I'm from, Cressa explains, a candle is lit in celebration on the day you're born. Then, every year on the anniversary of your birth, your parents relight the candle. You make a wish and blow the candle out. You don't do that where you're from? Tam shakes her head. No, We hold hands, we sing. Some years, perhaps a small gift, when crops are good. I have never heard of a first day candle. We do something similar to both of you, I say. There's candles and singing, but there's also usually cake involved. Oh, Tam says softly. I do enjoy a nice cake. But I think we're getting away from the original question. Right, Cressa nods. So I remember being 5, making a wish, and blowing out my candle. But then I suddenly wanted to change my wish. So I focused on the candle, wanting it to relight. And it did. I thought very little of it at the time. I simply smiled, made a new wish, and blew it out again. It all happened so quickly that I'm not sure any of the adults even noticed. Or if they did, they never mentioned it. Maybe they didn't want to admit to themselves what they had just seen. Then a few years later, when I was 10, I think, I got lost in the woods outside my family's estate. Night fell, and in the dark and cold, I fell into despair. I desperately wanted a fire, but I had no way of making one. I cried, wailed, sobbed in desperation until somehow a tiny flame appeared in the grass near me. Looking at the flame, my mind immediately went back to that day when I was 5, when I relit the candle simply by thinking about it. So I looked at the tiny flame in the grass. I wished it to be bigger, and suddenly it was. But then I was worried that it might burn down the forest. As uncontrollable fires tend to do, Tam noted. Cressa shot Tam a look. But that's the point. I was able to control the fire. I could keep it small, keep it from spreading. I somehow kept the fire burning the entire night, and yet only that small patch of fire in the grass burned. In truth, I realized many years later how lucky I had been. I had no idea what I had done or how I had done it. Tam is right. I could have burned down the trees and myself. But rather than bury my gift, I decided to teach myself how to use it. I never spoke of it to anyone. I knew what the laws say as well as anyone, but I practiced in secrecy. First making something catch, then controlling the fire, making it grow larger, then smaller, then larger again. Then one day, I created fire right in my hand. I held it, and it didn't burn me. God knows how it works exactly. I certainly don't. Normal fire burns me, sure enough. I knew that from an errant step toward a cook fire in my youth. But the fire I created did not. Over time, I learned that if I could hold fire, then I could also throw fire. But then shortly after that, a girl in a nearby town was accused of using magic. Before the authorities could be called in to arrest her, certain members of the town took it upon themselves to deliver their own brand of justice. They tied the girl to a post and stoned her to death. From that day on, I knew it was too dangerous to continue practicing my magic, even in secret. Gods, Tam whispered. The girl's parents, did they not try and stop the townspeople from killing her? Cressa's face was dark. They were part of the group that tied her to the post. Rumor says they even threw the first stones. We all sit in the dark, the story washing over us. Cressa looks to the sky and sighs. Well, that was a merry jaunt down the street of memories. Sorry about that. She exhales hard and turns to me with a fresh question. Raven, is that your real name, Raven? Odd name to be named after a color, although it does match your hair. I chuckle and nod. It is. It's the name I was given when I was little. Apparently, I had dark hair from the very beginning. And yeah, this very dark black hair is probably why I got the name. Although where I'm from, there's also a bird called a raven that's this same shade of black, so I might have been named after that as well. Cressa nods, satisfied. And you, Tam, is that your real name? Tam bites her lip and says, Tamara, forthright. Although I have always detested the name Tamara. It makes me sound so much like a delicate flower. Tam is a stronger name, I think. I like Tam, so I changed it. Much like you, Cressa, although you changed yours entirely, yes? Cressa nods, partly because, like you, I hated my name, but also because people were looking for a young maiden named Arabecca Hopewell. No one was looking for a serving girl named Cressa Brightburn. I'm a little confused, I say. The list had the name Arabecca Hopewell and the town of Stokely, but in your story a second ago, you said you got lost outside your family's estate. So you're not originally from Stokely then, are you? Cressa shakes her head. I am the only daughter of wealthy merchants. Our estate is a few miles outside of Stokely, and so when I ran, Stokely is where I went. I can only assume that whoever put me on that infernal list knew where I had gone, or suspected. But once I got there, I cut my hair to short spikes, used dyes to color its straw yellow, and changed my name. Arabecca is gone. Is that why you ran? Tam asks. Because of your magic. Cressa barks a laugh. I ran because the local town's governor found me in his daughter's bed. Tam considers this, eyes narrowing. So this governor was upset because he was looking for his daughter and found you in her bed instead? Cressa actually smirks at this too. Oh no, she was in the bed too. But strangely, none of her clothes were. Tam frowns. You stole her clothes. I sigh and rub my temples. Jesus, this kid. Sex, Tam. She means they were having sex. I can see Tam's face in the firelight, watching her eyes as her expression changes from confusion to realization to total shock. You, Tam sputtered. But you are a girl, and she is. But that's... Cressa sits back and groans. Oh, gods be good. Let me guess. It's forbidden wherever you're from. It's wayward to lie with another girl or some such. Well, Tam says carefully, no, not specifically, no. That is to say, yes, it would be scandalous for anyone to have relations with anyone outside of the marriage bond, but I am not foolish enough to think that it does not happen. But two women? There are no laws against it, so it's not forbidden exactly. But to lie in bed with another woman? I have never even heard of anyone doing... She shakes her head and grows quiet for a long stretch and then says, so how would that work exactly? How would you even... Suddenly Cressa is smiling brightly. Oh, you see, what we do is... Okay, I put up a hand. Enough questions for tonight. We have a long day of riding ahead, many more miles to go. Let's all get some sleep. Cressa stands up from the fire, chuckling softly. Ah, very well then. Another time, perhaps. Good night, Raven. Good night, farm girl. Cressa's expression is easy to read, smug satisfaction. Tam's is harder to interpret. She looks slightly disappointed and maybe a tiny bit curious.